And Mary, would you like to kick us off?
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. I know it's a beautiful day today and evening, at least it is here in East Lansing where I'm sitting. And thank you for your interest in these two proposals. It's been a long process. Many of us worked on the process to get these ballot proposals, get signatures, and followed, at least I did, followed their every move. So we're glad to have a couple of speakers tonight who are high up in the organizations of both of the proposals. We're going to do these in proposal order. Proposal 2 first, then proposal 3. I see Micheal Davis is on, and welcome, Micheal. I know Micheal, actually, I know his father, whose first name is spelled the same way. It's quite unique. It's not a misspelling. And so, you know, that's kind of unforgettable. He has a bachelor's in sociology from the University of Michigan down the road from here. And he's been involved in political organizing and good things for the last 15 years. I want to say also he's a new father of about 1 week. So he's a little sleepless probably, but we understand that. So Michael's going to, for our program, the way we've organized this is, we're going to say, I've asked him to do 10 minutes on what this proposal is about, 10 minutes on the campaign, how the campaign is organized. While he's talking, if you think of questions, you know, if you move your cursor, it brings up the line where there's the chat. Put a question in chat. We're going to do this that way so we can keep the questions on point. And we don't have a lot of time. We want to finish this off in an hour. Then I'm hoping Julie Rowe will come on to, excuse me, to talk about proposal 3, reproductive freedom for all. Then we're going to have do questions. So Micheal, can you take it away? I'm going to go to speaker mode myself. Do you have a slide you want to show us?
I do. Thank you. And thank you all for having me. Let's do share screen.
I forgot to say, Michael's the executive director of Promote the Vote.
Yes. Let's see. All right. Now, does that present to you as a slide?
Yeah, full screen slide. That's, oops, it was a full screen slide. Now it's slipped back.
Okay. 1 second. Let me do a little switcheroo.
You had it when you hit that slideshow button.
Yep. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
All right. I will pull it up. There we go. Now you can't see me. You don't need to see me.
Yeah, there it is. Hit that.
All right.
Perfect.
All right. So sorry about that. As Mary mentioned, I am Micheal Davis Jr. I am the executive director of Promote the Vote. And again, there we go. There we go. Thank you all for having me. I'll get right into it. You know, this is an important election year in Michigan. You know, this year, Michigan voters will have the opportunity to decide our next governor, who's going to represent us in Congress and who will represent you in Lansing, as well as what should be a host of local and community issues. There are also several key ballot initiatives, which I am here to talk to you about, that Michigan voters will have an opportunity to weigh in on. One important one being Promote the Vote 2022. So, I mean, voting is critical to the integrity of our democracy, which is why our fundamental voting rights should be respected and protected in Michigan's Constitution, true to the kind of the backbone of Promote the Vote. Promote the Vote 2022 builds on the success of Proposal 3 of 2018. So that saw no reason absentee voting, expanded voter registration, and the right to cast a secret ballot, and straight party voting. So passing the Promote the Vote 2022 ballot initiative will help ensure that every voice is heard and every vote is counted in every election, no matter what political party or candidate that we support, or where we live, or what we look like. So just the basics of the initiative. It's a ballot initiative. We're going to be on the ballot, as folks have said, in November 2022. What it would do, we're going to amend the Constitution to protect some important voting rights. Who's involved? There's a broad coalition of organizations and individuals. We have a partner page listed on the website that have been involved in the research, signature collection, and now in this phase, which is what is needed now, being able to carry the message, talking to our friends and family, neighbors and community members about the importance of making sure that this initiative passes. So why should you vote yes on PTV 2022? So Promote the Vote 2022 would recognize the fundamental right to vote without harassing conduct, so voters can vote free from intimidation and interference. So by voting yes on PTV 2022 on the ballot, we can again ensure that every eligible Michigander can vote regardless of their political party, and enhance the integrity and accessibility of our elections. Next, the ballot proposal would require that military and overseas ballots be counted if postmarked by election day and received within 6 days of the election. Promote the Vote 2022 provides voters the right to verify their identity with a photo ID or signed statement. Now, that is nothing more or nothing less than codifying the current Michigan law. So a yes vote on Proposal 2 will just help ensure elections are fair, accurate, and secure, and that election results are determined based on the votes of Michigan citizens whose identity is verified prior to counting their vote, whether they are voting in person or by mail. So if a voter opts to vote by mail, as Michiganders from every corner of the state seem to enjoy this convenience, PTV 2022 provides voters the right to request and fill out a single application to receive an absentee ballot by mail for all future elections, creating a true permanent absentee voter list here in Michigan. Next, PTV 2022 would also require secure drop boxes for voters to safely and conveniently return their ballot, helping to ensure that voting is more accessible for working parents and voters with disabilities, as well as the elderly and rural voters. A yes vote on Proposal 2 would be a vote to enhance election integrity and increase election security by modernizing how we administer elections to ensure that every vote counts through PTV 2022. So we would require election audits be conducted in public by state and county election officials based on established guidelines to promote accuracy and transparency. Promote the Vote 2022 would also create 9 days of early in-person voting, helping to ensure that voting is more accessible for all Michiganders, again, with every voter's identity being verified prior to counting their vote. And again, PTV 2022 would truly ensure that every vote counts, requiring canvass boards to certify election results based only on official records of vote cast, to avoid some of the procedural challenges and stall tactics that PTV 2022 and RFFA dealt with, delaying the will of the Michigan voters who all signed on in support of these initiatives. So in closing, by passing Promote the Vote 2022, we can make voting more convenient and accessible for all Michiganders of all backgrounds, because voting is critical to the integrity of our democracy, which is why I'm asking you all to help spread the word and talk to everyone that you can, every eligible voter, to vote yes on Proposal 2 in November 2022. So how you can further support. So you can volunteer, make a donation, become a partner, continue to get informed, share posts, encourage others to support PTV. We have a speakers bureau. So if you're interested, if you have community events coming up and you would like to, make this PowerPoint your own and be able to spread the gospel to other folks about this initiative, you can sign up to be a part of that Speakers Bureau. We actually just finished our third training with our comms folks, hour and a half training for, this is probably about 50 to 60 people now that have gone through the training to be able to talk to their community groups, to be able to go to these different events. So you can sign up for the Speakers Bureau. You can host house parties, right? Be able to, in the confines of your own home, have a friendly conversation. We are working on printing out, we'll have lit for door-to-door canvassing. There's going to be phone banks and text banking. You will be able to, get informed and stay tuned with, plugged in with all of that through our website, promotethevote2022.com. You'll be able to, click a button right there to sign up for an event, to request a speaker for other events. If, if you have something going on, and you want somebody like myself to come and make the presentation, that is, we're trying to make the website as user-friendly as possible to be able to help everyone be able to spread this easy, positive, simple message, to make sure that this gets passed in November and we continue to expand democracy here in Michigan. That's all. So yeah, we have different social media tags. If you have particular questions, at this point, you can just email. We're all family now, so you can just email Micheal at promotethevote.mi.com. And that's, again, Micheal at M-I-C-A. I'll drop that in the chat, M-I-C-H-E-A-L. Yes, it is very straightforward, right? I will say we did, research and different testing, and just having those, just a straight up conversation, the genuine conversations that we were able to have with the voters, and even just the anecdotal conversations that some of you may have had out collecting signatures and things like that. It is pretty straightforward when you spell it all out. There's no hidden agenda or anything that some of the opposition is alluding to. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. A yes on 2. I'll try to figure out how to. There we go.
Micheal, could you talk about why the overseas ballots have been a problem?
So just they've been a problem because not being received on time, right? And that's not, I think our military and overseas voters should not be penalized because of the mail system, right? We send things from state to state here, or city to, within the same city, that get lost in the mail or get slowed up in the mail. So just being able to make sure that if they've, made that effort to have it postmarked by election day, and, a reasonable with the understanding that, the votes do need to be counted so we can, report back to the public. But understanding that, there is time for lag. Promote the Vote itself is actually working on a specific report on rejected ballot, unrejected ballots. So that is something that I'll be able to speak more in depth in the coming weeks.
Kathy Stroud raises the issue. What do you think the opposition's points are going to be? What will they argue against here?
So I guess some of the arguments have been around saying that we want people to vote without an ID, which is completely false. We are simply codifying the current Michigan law, which says that if you have your ID, present your ID. If you do not, sign an affidavit affirming who you are, and that will still be checked against, everything will be checked against the voter file before your vote is counted.
Yeah, if a person signs an affidavit that they're subject to perjury charges if they're lying, basically.
Yeah. Yes. So, if someone,
you don't want that on your record, it's a misdemeanor, but it's still a criminal record, Also, one of the things it does is it enhances the feedback loop on your absentee ballot. Now, the last election, 2 elections, we've had a feedback loop where if you submitted a ballot, you could go to the Michigan Voter Information Center and find out something about the ballot. What will this do to improve that?
I think this will allow election officials, give them, sorry, the question in terms of improving the tracking, giving them more, allowing for more resources to be able to keep those systems. A lot of the time people are overwhelmed, right, with first time having no reason absentee voting. There were a lot of ballots that piled up, whereas some clerks didn't have the capacity to be able to process all of those. So being able to open up funding that is goes through the finance reporting and all that stuff, to make sure that there's capacity to help process, be able to increase that feedback loop.
So you can tell if your application has been received, whether an application has been sent to you, whether your ballot has been sent, whether your ballot has been received by the city or township clerk. Every step along the way, there will be some record of it that each voter can access.
Yep.
I think that's what's intended by this. What about the state funding for postage and that kind of thing? Sometimes locals had provided postage and sometimes they haven't. At the primary, my local put the postage on it, but I understand other people didn't have it. So what's this about?
So this is, just, there are, as you said, there are instances where communities and municipalities can't afford that. So making, opening it up for charitable donations to be able to, for communities to be able to afford that. Yeah. And I will point out, I like to say that I'm the logic guy, not the legal guy. So the legal minds at PTV and others kind of crafted these things. So if there are specific questions, I can take those back and get you some answers.
Yeah, what are the changes on drop boxes?
This would provide for secure drop boxes. Particularly, there were, in some instances, or you're hearing where, around the country in places where they're, removing drop boxes, right? So we want to make sure that there are secure drop boxes within municipalities. I believe for larger municipalities, one for every 15,000 voters. But just, again, increasing the access to the ballot and, the convenience, maybe you still can't vote in there 9 days of early voting. Maybe, maybe you still just want to fill it out and be able to, before you go to work one morning, drop it off at a drop box. So just being able to offer more options for people to, access democracy.
I was in a meeting today with my county clerk. She expects up to 75% absentee voting. So I'm trying to train myself to talk about a voting period from September 29th to November 8th through November 8th. There's a voting period of time, and even saying vote by November 8th, not vote on November 8th, because most people are going to be voting by absentee, either by drop boxes or mail or dropping it, going into the city clerk's office or whatever it is. Okay, Michael, if you can stick around, we might be able to answer some more questions. I noticed Julie has joined.
All right.
Is that right? Do I hear you there? She is waving. Not that Julie Lever. I'm talking about Julie Rowe.
And I realize my camera has me like at a weird angle, but my hair looks great. So let's try that.
We look better at a weird angle, Julie.
Right? I mean, maybe that's what I need. How's everyone doing tonight?
We're doing good. We've just heard about proposal 2. Julie is kind of one of ours. If you noticed on her bio, she's been doing organizing and political work for about 10 years. I told her I had 3 different email addresses for her, so she's been around in the last 10 years. And actually, she was an AAUW. She worked on the 2012 It's My Vote, I Will Be Heard campaign. We had special buttons and stickers and all kinds of stuff for that. And she was an undergrad at the U of M at the time. And so she's one of ours. She's going to give us a rundown on, you know, the Supreme Court put both of these measures on the ballot. Actually, they also put Proposal 1 on the ballot too. We seem to have a problem with partisan voting at the Board of State Canvassers. So Julie, tell us what this, share your screen if you can, and your slides we have here in case you can't do it.
Yep. Give me just a moment. I'm sorry, everyone. I realize I'm probably giving you all motion sickness as I'm trying to figure this out from my iPad, from a campaign. Are you able to share what I sent you, Mary?
We can hear, yes. Okay. And our two of our co-hosts have it in case you wouldn't be able to share it.
Yeah, if someone could share that, because I'm having a hard time with my iPad, and I apologize about the background noise. My presence was requested by my colleague on our finance team at one of our fundraising events. And so I'm trying to sneak out and meet my obligations to my colleague and then hop on another call. So forgive me, everyone, but can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
All right, great. And then thank you, Sheila, for sharing. So yes, on Prop 3. So the question I was asked was, what will the ballot do? And if you want to hit the next one for me.
And next.
Yep. Oh, sorry. If you want to hit the next one, I'm sorry. So our coalition, as many of you know, it was started years ago. And really, it's a number of people who've been working together for, quite frankly, decades on the reproductive justice movement, and AAUW obviously being a key member of this coalition for a long time. And again, I can't tell you how wonderful it is for my career to have landed me back on this campaign, and the amount of experience working with all of you when I was getting started, and what I learned from all of you has paid off in dividends in so many instances over the years. But to be back here and working on this campaign with this opportunity, I'm grateful for it, and especially to be working with a team of such great folks. So the AAUW of Michigan, Michigan Voices, and Planned Parenthood are really leading our coalition and have gotten us to this point. And if you hit the next slide, this is a list of the various coalition partners that we have. And of course, AAUW is on there. And I know you'd mentioned that it was possible the League of Women Voters would be joining us tonight, or sharing the invitation. I know that there's also plenty of people who are AAUW members who are very involved in the league. And I really appreciate the work that you all do for so long, and especially taking the, taking nonpartisan organizations that do work on issues, taking the step on this campaign to really endorse it. There's a number of organizations on this list, but also dozens more organizations that have endorsed. This is really the group of folks who got involved pre-petition, and the dozen scores at this point, probably organizations that have jumped on board on this campaign and recognized the importance of what needs to happen here. That an issue that often, I think, was taken, quite frankly, for granted by so many of us, in many cases, myself included, that we knew that the debates around abortion rights and the attempts to restrict and the attempts to undermine individual autonomy and freedom and dignity and privacy, we all knew were key and important fights. But we had Roe v. Wade and the constitutional interpretation therein and the precedent set that let us know that fundamentally they could try, but they would be, it would be the death by 1,000 cuts. Well, they got the big one, right? By undermining Roe v. Wade outright and overturning that ruling. So if you hit the next one for me. It is a tectonic shift that we are seeing in attitudes and approaches and willingness to engage in this conversation, right? This is a huge earth shifting underneath us. And I think the other metaphor / cliche that we're using is that this is a watershed moment in our nation's history. Many of you who've been fighting on this, many from, well before I was born, and well before Roe v. Wade passed, and you led a charge and you set things up. And for folks in my generation, we grew up being able to take for granted. And I know there's many AAUW members who are also of my generation and many who are younger than me, where we were able to take the right to our own bodies and the privacy and dignity and ability to make decisions with healthcare providers for granted. And now that it's gone, this is a huge moment where we are seeing around the country. I don't even need to tell you what I'm seeing as we're doing our voter contact work at Reproductive Freedom for All, how much the world has changed and how excited and the number of people who are getting involved because of this key issue. This is the generation of activists I think that we are about to see. They're getting engaged now. They've never done anything politically involved before. They've never maybe even canvassed, or, you know, some people are voting for the first time. Some people are registering to vote for the first time. We've seen huge numbers of people who are in many ways organically, but also saying yes right away to people who have been doing voter registration efforts. But we're ready to fight. This is a decades-long reproductive justice movement. There are organizations, there are networks, there are volunteers, there are activists who are built a network. I think of myself, having joined the campaign in August, as a pinch hitter, you know, a relief pitcher who's coming in to do a small part of the campaign, which is part of which is a tactic in the broader reproductive justice movement. So if you hit the next one for me, this is the actual ballot language. And I'm not going to read this to you. And, you know, it is available on the Reproductive Freedom for All website, which is myreproductivefreedom.org or myreprofreedom.org, but autocorrect might get you and change it to my repo. But we're working on a few other domain names that'll redirect and make things a little bit simpler for folks. But the key with this ballot language is it's a 100-word summary of a very well thought out proposed constitutional amendment that was drafted by the best constitutional experts and the best reproductive justice attorneys in the country. And, you know, I love to make the joke all the time about you have 2 attorneys and you have 3 opinions, right? At least. It's always usually more than that. But we had a lot of minds working on this and trying to get it right and make sure that this could be a durable, long-lasting solution to a problem and establishing that individual right to reproductive freedom. If you want to hit the next slide for me, there's 3 key components of the language itself on the constitutional amendment that I think are key. The first is that it restores the right to abortion. Before it was overturned, Roe v. Wade protected this right and prevented a law in Michigan, the 1931 abortion ban, from becoming a law again. I'm happy to answer questions about that injunction on that law. I'm sure many of you have questions about it and what that means. But we all know that it is a permanent injunction that became on top of a temporary injunction, which is a huge win. But permanent is relative in terms of our court and our legal system. And there are multiple levels of appeals. There are multiple levels of courts that could rule on this. That could happen at any time. And quite frankly, I don't think it'll happen in the next 52 days before election, because that would just spur even more activism, right? Every time that the far right, the reactionary people, the people who are opposed to women and people having autonomy over their own bodies, every time they do something to smack us down, they realize how, I hope they've figured it out by now, but well, I would hope for their intelligence sake that they've figured it out by now, but I don't hope that they've really figured it out. Every time they do something that pisses off a whole lot of people, we get more donations, we get more volunteers, we get people in the streets about what they're doing. And I don't think they want that before election day. So, but they're coming for it. Their stated mission is to ban abortion in all cases, right? They want the 1931 law, and their comms director for the opposition on this campaign even said that flat out. They want to protect the 1931 law. That's why they are campaigning. They're trying to distract people with talk about smushing and kerning, like the fact that the words were too close together, but it's complete and utter nonsense. And it is a distraction, scaremongering tactic. Now, what they are afraid of is what the amendment actually does. It's not that they couldn't read it or understand it. They knew exactly what it says. And it says that it'll restore the right to abortion. It'll protect access to reproductive health care, including things like birth control, prenatal care, childbirth, choosing when and not to, sterilization, et cetera. And this affects people of all genders, of all gender identities, of all sexual orientation. And what they really don't love is that it ensures equity and access to reproductive health care. It explicitly prohibits discrimination in reproductive health care, not just about abortion, but about birth control and all of the other factors that come into the decisions when it comes to when and how to become a parent. But it prohibits factors like race, gender, age, or background. And that's what they really don't like, right? So if we hit the next slide, thank you, Sheila. Why vote yes on Prop 3? It will ensure Michigan women have the freedom to make highly personal decisions about abortion for themselves, by themselves, instead of having politicians decide for them. And that is what this is, Right to Life. And the opponents to this proposal are trying to ban abortion in all cases. And they want politicians to tell us how we should live our lives and what we should do with our own bodies. Prop 3, on the other hand, trusts women to make the decision that is best for their bodies and their lives. And everyone deserves that right to control their own body. And the final reason that I've got here, Prop 3 ensures that a person cannot be punished for having a miscarriage, a stillbirth, or an abortion. I know many of you are actually far better experts on the 1931 law around this amendment language than even I am. But that is a key component, and I'm happy to answer any detailed questions on, I'm happy to answer any questions on that with as much detail as I have. But if we hit the next one, the next slide, thanks, Sheila. Because the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, which protected the right to an abortion and privacy in healthcare decisions, Prop 3 is needed to restore the protections of Roe in Michigan. Voting yes keeps in place the abortion rights we've had in Michigan for the last 50 years. But voting no would mean a 1931 law that makes almost all abortions a crime, even and including cases of horrific cases like rape or danger to the woman's health or heart-wrenching times when a baby isn't even viable anymore, could go back into effect at any moment. So if we hit the next slide, what are we, why vote yes? We want to make a few points very clear. When serious medical complications arise during pregnancy, doctors need to be able to have the full range of treatment options, including abortion, that will be best for the patient and determined with the patient. And Prop 3 protects the doctor's ability to do what is best for the patient. And it ensures doctors and patients, again, not the politicians, are making these medical decisions. So if we go to the next one for me. So fundamentally, here is what we are asking folks to continue communicating. Prop 3 will restore the rights we have had under Roe for nearly 50 years. In order to protect that and restore those rights that we have been, the paradigm, the status quo, the reality that we have had when we've lived in Michigan under Roe is these same rights for 50 years. Without Prop 3, we do not have that. That is the key point to remember. So that is why you have to vote yes on 3. If you hit the next one for me. So what are we doing? And we've got volunteer opportunities. The key thing that we need to do is go into door-to-door canvassing. We do need to do phone banking, and we also need to do relational voter outreach. We have a number of incredible partners who are also going to be working together highly, on relational voter outreach. That is, you are the most effective messenger to people who already know and trust you. That doesn't mean we don't also need to talk to folks we don't know, and we absolutely do, but we need to take every opportunity we have to talk to folks we do know and ask them to vote yes on this. And then we are going to do some text messaging, but that's not going to come later until closer to the election, because I don't know about you, but I have hit stop or quit about, I want to say at least 4 times today alone on those messages, which don't really mean much to me and don't really mean much to other voters, because quite frankly, it worked very effectively to text people in 2016. And by now we've ruined it, because that's what we do as organizers. We find new and more interesting ways to annoy people and get our message through. But unfortunately, it's just only going to be effective to folks we already have a relationship with, or with very simple information to folks like, this is where you go vote. So we will do a little bit of that. But the other thing is, because you can send 1,000 text messages in under an hour, and we only have 10 million voters in Michigan, we only need about 100 person hours to do all the text that we want to do. And if I had 100 people doing texting, I would be done in an hour. So that's why we want to be very thoughtful about that particular thing and why we're asking you to do door-to-door canvassing and phone banking and plugging in with the campaign on the relational voter outreach where you're talking to your friends and family. And I want to particularly remind folks, and I want to tell you a little story on this. I took my niece, who's about 11 now, but when she was 6 or 7, I took her to Henry Ford Museum and we went through the women's suffrage exhibit, and we got to stand in a jail cell replica while we watched the Iron Jawed Angels clip. And I had some tears in my eyes thinking about this. And my niece looks up at me and she says, Auntie Julie. And it was actually more of an Auntie Jewy. She hadn't quite figured out the L's yet, which now that she has, it makes me a little sad and nostalgic. Auntie Jewy, why are you crying? And I just looked down at her and I said, Riley, you need to vote. Every chance you get, you need to vote, right? Every election, every opportunity, you need to do it. And she looked up at me and she was a little confused. And at 7 years old, I figured I'll table that conversation for later. But when I do call her when she's 18 and I ask her if she's voted, she's going to feel, I hope, and I'm going to remind her of our experience together in Henry Ford Museum. And that's what I need all of you to do, is to call your nieces, call your nephews, call your aunts, call your uncles, and I need you to ask them to vote. I need you to ask them to vote and vote yes on this and be that reminder, because they might think, it's a harder thing. So I'm asking you to do that. If you hit the next slide for me, and again, I'm so sorry about the background noise. We're also going to be doing some community visibility work. And while we know that is a really effective thing, and we can talk to lots of people very quickly, if we go to a farmer's market every Saturday, we're talking to about 200 or 500 people, and we really need to be talking to about 20,000 in every community that has its own farmer's market. So that's why we need to go do those doors, right? We need to get to all those people, and it'll feel, we need you to knock a 50 doors on a weekend and talk to 10 voters. And here's the thing, we need 1,000 people to do that. And we have 60,000 people who've said that they want to get involved in this campaign. And we are plugging them into various campaign activities and very excited, and the volunteer opportunities that we have. And that's why we need everyone to say yes when we call and we ask. But we also need you to come to us and sign up on our website to get involved. Because if we do not get this message out, and we do not win the narrative, so to speak, we do not overcome, the other side wants to do an all-out abortion ban. But instead of saying that, because they know that'll lose, they're saying all sorts of nonsense and lies and distorting the truth. And they're doing distractionary tactics, like they're talking about spacing issues, as if 750,000 people were confused by what they signed, which we all know, and many of you, thank you, collected all of those signatures to get us on the ballot. We know people know what they signed, and they know that people know what they signed, which is why they're not saying what their real goal is. And that's why we need to get that message to people. And that's why we're working so hard to do it, and why I'm asking you to help join us to make that happen. So I think that's it for this presentation. I might have thrown one more in there at the end though. Yep. So this is our organizing regions. Just so you know, what we're trying to do is make sure that within all of those regions, we have phone numbers and we have offices where people can call. And I've been calling it the Repro Pony Express, forgive me. So we can get the yard signs, why we can get the campaign literature. So that way we are spreading our message everywhere. And our organizers are very focused on talking to volunteers about setting up a canvas at the coffee shop near you, where we're going to meet with all the 5 people who want to. So that way we can go talk to the folks in that neighborhood or the next neighborhood over, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how we're going to really build this movement and get our message to everyone. So we're really excited for what's to come, because I can tell you, having knocked many doors myself, we're several thousand in. We've already had several hundred people volunteer with us since we qualified for the ballot. That we're going to be able to do this. We just need to keep that momentum up, and we're hoping you'll be able to join us. And if you're not, please share that information with others, so that way, we really can talk to every voter that needs to hear our message before they get to the polls or before they turn that ballot in by November 8th. So that is the brief overview version. And Mary,